All right, everyone, get ready because today we're going deep, really deep, into the mind of Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill.
You know him, right? The author of Think and Grow Rich.
Of course, a classic.
Total classic, but we're going a little off the beaten path this time. We're going to
Oh,
be exploring one of his lesser-known works, a book called Outwitting the Devil.
interesting choice. What made you pick that one?
Well, honestly, it's a bit eerie, a bit unsettling even.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So, get this. Hill structured the book as an interview, a conversation with the devil himself.
An interview with the devil, that's definitely a unique approach.
Right. And because of that controversial format, it actually wasn't published for decades.
Wow. I can see why that would cause some hesitation.
But tucked within this unusual dialogue, Hill reveals some startling truths about success, failure, and this concept of drifting.
Drifting. Sounds like something we should all be wary of.
Exactly. And before we get to the devil's perspective on it, I'm curious, can you tell us a bit about Hill's own journey, his background, and how he came to these ideas?
Absolutely. I mean, Hill's early career was, well, it was a bit of a roller coaster ride.
Ooh.
He jumped from job to job chasing money.
Thinking that was the key to happiness.
Exactly. And he even went through, I mean, can you imagine this? Paralyzing fear after a business partner was murdered?
Oh, wow. That's heavy stuff. I can definitely see how those kinds of experiences would shape your outlook on success and even just life itself.
Totally. So eventually Hill has this aha moment, this awakening, as he calls it.
An awakening.
Yeah. He describes it as his other self taking over, pushing him way outside of his comfort zone.
I love that, the other self.
Yeah. And he tells this amazing story about an unexpected trip to Philadelphia.
What happened in Philadelphia?
Well, he barely had any money, but that trip landed him a successful book deal.
Talk about trusting your gut.
Right. And that's the thing. That experience really solidified Hill's belief that failure isn't the opposite of success, but it's actually a crucial part of the journey.
So failure is like a stepping stone.
Exactly. It's valuable feedback, something to propel you forward. And he even uses examples like Thomas Edison.
Oh yeah, Edison, famous for his perseverance.
Exactly. He faced so many setbacks before his breakthroughs.
It makes you think, how many of us give up right before our own Edison moment?
Right. It's a good question to ask ourselves. And speaking of self-reflection, Hill was a big advocate for something he called self-inventory.
Self-inventory.
Yeah. He did this yearly assessment, honestly evaluating his weaknesses and charting his progress.
That's interesting. Sounds like a practice we could all benefit from. So we've talked about Hill's background, his own struggles and breakthroughs, but let's bring the devil into this conversation now.
Okay, let's do it.
So this devil's confession, everyone keeps mentioning, what is it all about? What does the devil actually confess to?
So brace yourself for this one, because it's a bit unexpected. The devil admits to being afraid of people who think for themselves.
Wait, really? The devil fears independent thinkers? That's not what I expected at all.
I know, right? And it ties directly into Hill's whole philosophy on individual achievement and harnessing the power of your own mind.
So if you can control your thoughts, you can outwit the devil.
Precisely. But here's where it gets even more interesting. According to Hill, the devil's primary weapon, his favorite tool to use against us, is drifting.
Drifting. Okay, we've mentioned that a few times, but I think we need to break it down.
You're right. So drifting, Hill explains, is essentially a habit cultivated from childhood, often unintentionally reinforced by, well, everyone, from parents and teachers to even religious leaders.
Whoa. You start to question all the influences that have shaped your life, don't you?
You really do. It's a lot to unpack.
Definitely a lot to think about there. But before we go any further, I think we need to clearly define this drifting thing. What exactly is it that the devil is so fond of?
Right. Good point. So as Hill defines it, drifting is basically a state of unconscious living. It's where you let external forces dictate your thoughts, actions, and ultimately your destiny. You're just kind of going through the motions without a clear purpose, a lack of direction. You've surrendered your power to choose.
Like you're on autopilot.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's paint a picture here. Who is this drifter that the devil loves to manipulate? What are some of their characteristics?
So generally speaking, a drifter lacks a well-defined purpose, they struggle with self-confidence, and they tend to give in to failure pretty easily. They often find themselves stuck in the cycle of negative thinking and inaction.
It's like they're just existing, not truly living.
Exactly. And in contrast, Hill paints this picture of a non-drifter, someone who actively resists the devil's influence and takes control of their own destiny.
Okay, so the non-drifter is the opposite. They have a purpose. They're resilient.
Yes, they radiate resilience, they rely on themselves, and they learn from their failures.
Wow, it's amazing how two different approaches can lead to such different outcomes.
It really is. And that's what makes Hill's work so powerful. It shows us that we have a choice. We can choose to drift or to steer our own course.
So the devil loves drifters, but how does he actually lure people into this state of drifting? What are some of his tactics?
That's a great question. And it might surprise you, but the devil's methods are actually pretty subtle. He doesn't always rely on like outright negativity.
Oh,
He uses things like bribes, things we all crave, love, money, recognition, those external rewards.
right, things that seem good on the surface.
Exactly. But Hill argues that the devil distorts our priorities. We become so fixated on these external things that we lose sight of, well, our true purpose, our inner fulfillment.
So it's not that those things are inherently bad. It's about maintaining awareness and balance.
Precisely. And let's not forget, the devil's use of flattery. He knows how to play on our insecurities. Even successful people fall prey to egotism, and that makes them vulnerable to drifting.
It's like he preys on those deep-seated fears and desires we all have.
You got it. And that raises a really important question. Are we truly aware of the influences shaping our thoughts and actions? Like, are we really in control?
It's almost like the devil is whispering in our ears, disguising his messages as our own thoughts.
Right, and it's not just our internal dialogue. Hill exposes the shocking role of propaganda.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is. He talks about its pervasive presence in media and how it subtly influences us without us even realizing it.
Wow, it's a wake-up call to be more critical of the information we consume, to really examine where our beliefs are coming from.
Absolutely, and to question everything, even those things we think we know for sure.
So it seems like the devil's tactics are pretty pervasive. Is there any escape from this drifting? Does Hill offer any solutions?
He does. Thankfully, he gives us a powerful antidote to drifting. His 10-point formula for outwitting the devil.
A 10-point formula. Now, I'm really interested. Let's unpack that, shall we?
Let's do it. Absolutely. Let's dive into this 10-point formula. It's all about taking control, mastering your mind, and breaking free from those subtle ways we drift.
It's like we're handing people a map to navigate these treacherous waters.
Exactly. And step one, the first point in Hill's formula is this. Think for yourself on all occasions.
Sounds simple enough, but in today's world, with information overload and everyone shouting their opinions, it's got to be tougher than ever.
You're telling me. It's like a constant battle for our attention, so many influences pulling us in different directions.
Right. From social media to news to our families, everyone has an opinion. So how do we even begin to develop this independent thinking that the devil, according to Hill, is so terrified of?
It starts with awareness, recognizing those subtle ways we've been conditioned to drift.
Like those unspoken rules, those expectations that we just accept without question.
Exactly. And Hill points out that sometimes, even with the best intentions, we end up helping the devil without realizing it.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about those parents who constantly intervene, solving their kids' problems, making decisions for them.
Trying to protect them from the world.
Right. But what happens is they're inadvertently preventing their kids from developing that crucial independent thought.
Interesting. It's like we're creating a generation of drifters by not letting them struggle, fail, and learn from their own experiences.
Oh, you got it. And it's not just parents. Hill was also critical of the education system.
Oh, yeah. What did he have to say about that?
Well, he argued that it often focuses too much on rote memorization, just cramming facts, and not enough on actually teaching kids how to think critically.
Yeah, that critique still rings true today.
It really does. It's like we're producing graduates who know a lot of stuff, but they don't know how to analyze information, form their own opinions, or think outside the box.
And then you've got the influence of religion. Hill even suggests that some religious teachings, particularly those that emphasize blind faith and fear of punishment, can contribute to drifting as well.
Yeah, that's a bold statement.
It is, but Hill's challenging us to question everything, even our most deeply held beliefs.
Right. It's not about rejecting faith. It's about approaching it with more awareness, a more informed and conscious perspective.
So we're surrounded by these influences that can lead to drifting. It can feel pretty overwhelming.
It can, but thankfully Hill doesn't just leave us hanging. He offers solutions in his 10-point formula.
Okay, good. I'm ready for some solutions. What else does this formula have in store for us?
So point number 2 really jumped out at me. Decide what you want from life. create a plan to get it, and be willing to sacrifice for it.
That sounds like classic goal-setting advice, but I'm sure Hill has his own unique spin on it.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about setting any random goal. It's about identifying a purpose that's truly meaningful to you, something that motivates you to overcome obstacles and stay committed, even when it gets tough.
So it's about aligning your goals with your values, your passions, not just chasing what society or other people tell you to chase.
Exactly. And that often requires you to step outside your comfort zone, take risks, and be okay with the possibility of failure.
Which brings us to another key point in Hill's formula, extracting advantages from your failures.
Ah, yes. Hill had a very unique perspective on failure, didn't he?
He did. Instead of seeing it as the end, he saw it as an opportunity.
Right. He encourages us to view setbacks as feedback, as valuable lessons that can help us grow and move forward.
It's about shifting our perspective, changing the narrative.
And remembering that everyone, even the most successful people, have experienced failure. It's how you respond to it that sets you apart.
So it's not about avoiding failure altogether. It's about embracing it, learning from it.
Exactly. And Hill also emphasized rendering useful service as a key component of success.
What did he mean by that?
He believed that true success involves contributing to something larger than yourself, making a positive impact on the world.
It's about using your talents, your skills, to benefit others, to make a difference.
Precisely. And this idea ties into another important point, aligning yourself with a higher power.
Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be religious, right?
Right. It's about tapping into that universal source of intelligence and creativity, whatever that means to you, and trusting that it can guide you.
So it's about having faith, whether it's in a higher power of the universe or even just your own intuition.
Exactly. And Hill was quite bold in his approach to prayer. He encouraged people to not just beg or plead, but to actually demand what they want, to align their desires with this higher power and trust that it will deliver.
That's a powerful way of looking at prayer. It takes a lot of faith and self-belief.
It does, but Hill believed that when you combine clear intention, action, and trust in this higher power, amazing things can happen.
Now let's talk about fear. Hill had a lot to say about fear.
He did. He described it as a filler, something the devil uses to occupy those unused spaces in our minds.
So if we're constantly dwelling on our fears, our worries, we're essentially giving the devil more power.
Exactly. And Hill reminded us that fear is just a state of mind. It's something we can control by replacing it with faith and self-belief.
So it's about shifting our focus from what we fear to what we desire, trusting in our ability to overcome challenges.
Absolutely. And this leads us to another practical point in Hill's formula, budgeting our time wisely.
Ah, yes, time management, a classic struggle.
It is. Hill recognized time as our most valuable asset. It's the raw material from which we create our dreams.
We all have the same 24 hours. It's how we choose to use them that matters.
Precisely. And finally, Hill emphasizes the power of our thoughts, reminding us that our dominant thoughts actually attract their physical counterparts through this universal law of attraction.
So if we want to create a successful, fulfilling life, we need to start by mastering our thoughts, cultivating positivity and belief.
Exactly. It all comes back to the mind.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. Hill's 10-point formula is really comprehensive. It covers mindset, goals, spirituality, everything. But if we had to distill it down to one core principle, what would you say it is?
I think it really boils down to mastering your mind, conquering those fears, cultivating that unshakable positive mindset, and never giving in to that sneaky habit of drifting.
So it's about taking control of your thoughts, your beliefs, and using them to shape your reality.
Exactly. And it's not just about understanding it intellectually. It's about living it, integrating these principles into everything you do.
It's like Hill's giving us this incredible toolbox, but it's up to us to actually use those tools.
I love that analogy. And remember, Hill's own journey wasn't easy. He faced so many obstacles, financial struggles, fear, setbacks that would have crushed most people. But he persevered, and through those challenges, he discovered the power of what he called his other self.
Right, that inner strength, that resilience, that intuition that seems to guide us when we least expect it.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying we all have this other self just waiting to be awakened.
Yeah. He truly believed that this other self resides within each of us. It's the source of our resilience, our intuition, our connection to something bigger than ourselves, that universal intelligence that can guide us toward our true potential.
It's a powerful concept.
Yeah.
But how do we tap into this other self? Did Hill offer any guidance on that?
He did. And It's not about some mystical ritual or anything like that. It's about making a conscious choice to step outside your comfort zone, to challenge those limiting beliefs, and to face the unknown with courage and determination.
So it's an active process. It requires effort, a willingness to push ourselves beyond our perceived limits.
Exactly. And Hill reminds us that we're not alone in this journey. We have the power to choose our thoughts, shape our beliefs, and ultimately create the reality we desire. But it all starts with a shift in perspective, letting go of fear and embracing those infinite possibilities.
It's about recognizing that we have more control over our lives than we often realize.
And that's what sets apart the drifters from those who actively shape their destinies. The drifters, as Hill described them, allow circumstances to control them, while those who embrace his principles, they take control, they chart their own course, and they navigate those inevitable storms with resilience and an unshakable belief in their ability to reach their destination.
It's inspiring to think that we all have that potential within us, that we can choose to be the captains of our own ships.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of Hill's work. He's not just offering theories, he's providing a practical roadmap for personal transformation, for tapping into that inner power and creating a life that truly reflects your deepest aspirations.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the mind of Napoleon Hill in his book, Outwitting the Devil, what would you say is the key takeaway from all of this?
I would say the power to overcome drifting, to achieve true freedom and success, it all lies within you. It's time to awaken that other self, embrace the challenges, and create a life that's aligned with your truest self.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the depths of Outwitting the Devil. And remember, the most important step you can take is the one you take today.